All right, we're now into game 1 of the grand finals. And it's technically just finals. This isn't a double elimination tournament. But we see Isomorphic once again. He went 7-1 on the Swiss versus Jerry, who, if I remember correctly, also went 7-1 in the Swiss. Yeah. So we see Jerry on FJS, Isomorphic once again on TSP, Time Primal, TPS, sorry. Time Primal Shadow, Jerry on Armory colors, as it were. Although he doesn't actually have, a slew of Armory cards, of course. Yeah, Isomorphic kind of just on the value train. He drops the Blind Storyteller on 1, knowing he doesn't have a 2-drop. Loots away half a card to draw a card. A fair trade. Jerry managing to put on the Stranger Beats plan, although Isomorphic now has a Plague to blunt that offensive. Eventually, I highly, highly doubt he plays it this turn. I don't think he's super worried about his life total when he's at 23. I imagine he does. Interesting. Okay. Well, he knows that the second Plague will clear those 1/1 token or 1/1 strangers out of the way. But I'm still slightly surprised at that line. I guess he doesn't really want to loot anything in his hand away particularly, although because he wants to drop the other half of the Yeti Troublemaker's next turn. Which can effectively block the strangers, although now, of course, they cannot. Or, well, rather, the equipped Stone Scar Stranger cannot be blocked effectively by the 3/2 Troublemaker. All right, ISO, realizing that the Troublemaker has lost some of its value, probably just going to loot it or a power away. Interesting. And play the Stranger, huh? He thinks he's under too much pressure to develop a 5-cost card here. Although I'm uncertain. All right, he's gonna have to play a 3/2 next turn anyway, unless he loots and plays a cheaper card. So I think he would have rather played the 3/2 Flyer over the 3/2 Ground unit. But again, he may just decide to loot here. No, he doesn't. That seemed like a strange decision to me. Pitching the Skywalk Instructor. Huh. Oh well, whatever. Right, now ISO has kind of stabilized the board a little bit. Jerry can still swing in with the 3/2 Quick Draw, Stone Scar Stranger. This crowd favorite. Yep. Bloodletter is very, very bad for Isomorphic here. Yeah, there is basically no way for him to block this Stone Scar Stranger. Even if he plagues... Okay, now he does. Now he does have a way to block the Stone Scar Stranger. If he plagues and Amethyst Acolyte the Stone Scar Stranger, it will be reduced to being a 4/3, and the Direwood Prowler can block it. Will he have time to deploy that and not... Oh, yep, okay. So, now Jerry doesn't really have profitable attacks with the 1/1 and 3/4. If he ace bases, ISO can take 2 good blocks and go down to 4. Let me see if Jerry has any real reach in his deck. 2 Alk Blasts, a Stone Powder Alchemist, a Charge Unit and Oni's Striker, but no direct burn. Not really. Oh, he has a Granite Ring. That would certainly seal the game out. It would also let the Stone Scar Stranger be able to more effectively attack in. All right. Iso decides to preserve his life total a little bit. Oh, that execute draw is incredible because he doesn't really want to. He wants to get rid of the Stone Scar or the Stone Powder Alchemist in a way that doesn't allow it to just come back. So if he Amethyst Acolytes it and then Plagues, it will die and be unable to revenge. So he's setting that play up for next turn. Yeah, Jerry no longer really has terribly good attacks. If he ace bases, he gets through 2 damage. Jerry has very likely drawn a Rapid Shot here, which is very bad. Or he's just bluffing one. No, Magma Javelin. Okay, there is a 4 damage. There is another 4 damage punish in the deck. All right. Yeah, Iso didn't really believe he had the life total to spare to not block. And Jerry's managed to keep pressure on just enough to keep Isomorphic having to make just slightly suboptimal, to take slightly suboptimal lines here. And this Obsidian Golem represents an interesting threat because if it gets blocked, the crowd favorite turns into a 4/5, which cannot be blocked and has to be chumped every turn. And Isomorphic starting to flood out a little bit. Again, he didn't manage to bin any power earlier with his Blind Storyteller, so he is deeper into his deck than Jerry, but not by a lot. And so this extra power draw is really hurting him. And while Isomorphic does have another Blind Storyteller in the deck, I guess he doesn't want to hold on to power just in case of that, although he hasn't played his Wisdom of the Elders yet, so playing out power still makes sense. Yeah, and Isomorphic just does not want to take the extra free damage, even though it represents more damage in the future. Iso was kind of hoping for the top of his deck to reward him, and it is just like, nah, I have more power. Unfortunately for Isomorphic. Yeah, now Iso is kind of in Chump City. Ooh, it decides to go to 1. Yeah, the flood here is a little bit too much for Iso to handle. So it looks like he'll be going down 0-1 in game 1 of the event, or in the finals of the event. Okay. Jerry had an interesting decision there to make if he wanted to sacrifice his Skeeter for Infernal Tyrant value, or for the tempo of the Infernal Tyrant rather. Oh well. Iso is very likely dead there anyway, but the Alch Blast actually puts the nail in the coffin. Right, so Jerry now leads 1-0. Yeah, the pool that Jerry got is actually a very reminiscent pool of Set 1 draft, putting together kind of the FJS Weapons Matter deck, which was not one of the best decks in Set 1 draft, but it had the potential to go off very hard, especially if you got the right cards, and it does definitely look like Jerry did. So Isomorphic at this point, he keeps seeing these blind storytellers, which makes sense. He does have 2 of them in his deck. But this is not a matchup where the value engine component is as powerful as it has been previously for him. But Jerry's not getting off to a very fast start this game, so it may be enough for him to, for Isomorphic to get off a loot or 2 and increase the quality of his cards just enough to edge out a win here. All right. Wow, okay. Yep. Jerry respecting the blind storyteller, just saying, no, I want this to be a fair game in terms of value. Of course, Isomorphic doesn't have a significant number of X2s in his deck. He does have Serpent Trainer and some Strangers, but Alkblast is not the most likely card to get better value than just killing that blind storyteller. Jerry managing to drop the Infernal Tyrant on curve. ISO doesn't really have... He doesn't really have to worry about that, of course, because he has the Execute and Adaptive Predator. I can't imagine who blocks, of course, given he can just execute next turn. But I can't imagine Jerry offers the... well, yeah. If he has a rapid shot, he'll make the swing, and so ISO won't block. But Jerry may also want to hold it back. Interesting. Okay. So now he just wants to take advantage of the fact that the Adaptive Predator must swing. So hopefully, from Jerry's point of view, hopefully the Adaptive Predator swings, the 9/9 eats the 8/8. And then from then on, Jerry will just have free reign to murder with his... Oh... All right, so ISO could have taken the route the previous turn of Plague, then swing, forcing the trade, but now he'll just execute, deciding the 12 life is worth it, is worth the silence, yeah. All right, and now Jerry will be slightly disappointed to see this execute. It's not the worst trade for Jerry. The Adaptive Predator is a very, very powerful threat. Oh, the Accelerated Evolution 1 turn. Just too late. But the Adaptive Predator is basically the best threat in Isomorphic's deck in terms of an individual unit and in terms of snowball potential. The Thunderstrike Dragon is the better overall threat in terms of being able to put out 2, 5, 6 bodies. We haven't seen him draw it yet. Same for the Slime Spitter, although in ISO's deck, he does have a lot of flyers. If he were to draw the Slime Spitter Slug after jumping some units, it would be awful for him to play it, but at this point, I believe ISO is likely to just want to go for lethal here with these Accelerated Evolutions. And we'll see if Jerry has any answers hiding away at fast speed. And he does not. Isomorphic ties with the series 1-1. Alright, now we will be going into post-board games. We didn't see Isomorphic go into any crazy sideboard plans with a completely different set of colors, but he was also in a value versus value matchup last round of the tournament in the semifinals. It could be that Jerry's deck is much more aggressive than his previous opponent's deck was. He may want to swap to a different boarding plan because of the difference in aggression levels between the two decks, and we'll see that shortly. I haven't really had the opportunities to watch any of Jerry's games, so I don't know what his sideboarding plans potentially might be. And once again, sorry for the kind of dead air while players sideboard. I don't really have a good way to analyze what they may or may not be doing aside from just discussing the fact that, in Sealed, you have a 148 card pool for this event. Every combination of those cards is legal. You don't have to stay in their same colors. You didn't have to pick a sideboard out for your deck. You're just able to go into any configuration of your cards that is illegal in the game, which gives players a lot of options to sideboard into, if they so choose. Being able to change colors in Sealed is often a drawback more than a benefit, because it means you had a pool that wasn't very specialized. Generally, you want 2 or 3 of your colors to be well overrepresented in your pool, because that gives you a deep bench in those colors. You'll often be able to play slightly higher card quality, or potentially even go directly into a 2-color deck, and be able to consistently play your cards. Although we really haven't been seeing a lot of influence issues with our players in these games. The extra fixing that we decided to give out to every pool seems to be doing work in terms of players being able to actually play out games, and that, of course, was the goal. We didn't want to make running 4 or 5 faction greed piles the best option, but we wanted players who who didn't really get the opportunity to go into a straight 2-color deck. We didn't want to punish them by I didn't open any fixing, but I also don't have enough playables in 2 colors, so I guess I'm playing inconsistent 3-faction stuff. We wanted to make it so that 3 factions were a little bit more playable with the 2 Seek powers, but the diplomatic seals are a little bit better if you are more constrained in the influence that you want to cast. So we thought that was a good middle ground. Yeah, once again, sorry about the dead air. I've kind of tried to talk about it as much as I can in terms of what players are able to do for their sideboards without being able to actually watch what they're doing. It's very hard to look at a sealed pool and pick out sideboard options without having seen what they've been doing. All right, we now see players getting into the post-board games. Once again, sorry about the delay. You know, I'm not going to rush the players through sideboarding in the finals, and I can't really comment too much on what they're doing. All right, also keeps his hand on the strength of the free Wisp token to stem a little bit of aggression out of Jerry, and being able to pull, to pull a Shadow Sigil instead of a Time Sigil. He does have and never punished. I would have actually expected him to wait on playing that Seek. He's less likely. I think he is more likely to draw a power that gives him more information about what he wants to pull with the Seek than a 2-drop. And then he could have Seeked for Shadow to play Scheme on turn 3 to dig for time if he needed it. But it worked out for him well in the end. Yeah, now he'll be able to develop any number of his choice of 4 drops next turn. Likely to be the Serpent Trainer. But Jerry is saying that ISO doesn't have the time to develop freely as he chooses for the longer game plan. I imagine ISO at this point will develop the Geral's Frostkin. No, he does decide to go for the longer game plan. This Obsidian Golem will be very hard to block, given that it will grow into a 4/4 this turn. It will swing as a 5/5 next turn. If he stuns it, he'll be able to delay that growth, but he won't have anything that he can cleanly put in front of it. Whereas if he stunned it the previous turn, he would have been able to put the Frostkin plus Wisp token in front of it. But ISO is potentially willing to race or rely on the buff from Accelerated Evolution to give him the ability to trade with it eventually. Or he may just decide that he wants to chump block it and win the race that way. I imagine now that ISO did not draw a 3-drop, he will just want to develop the Wind Shaper this turn and get himself a second 3/3. Nope, okay. He does decide to stun the Obsidian Golem, not wanting to chump block with the Wisp token yet. I think he just wanted to guarantee that his Serpent Trainer would have wanted to connect. Playing the Serpent Trainer, then playing the Geral's Frostkin on a flyer that may have developed. But we see Jerry basically going with the Argentport mid-range plan from a couple months ago before Bart was nerfed, and saying, no, blocking doesn't happen. I've removed a critical portion of interaction in this game. Deal with it. Of course, Isomorphic has a Archive Curator, but this Streetwise format will swing as a 6/9 next turn, just off the back of the Paladin Oathbook. Although Jerry may want to swing with his 4/4 and 5/8. This is going to be a hard race for ISO to win. He does have a free chump blocker in the Wisp token, and next turn he can play the Wind Shaper for an additional 4 damage. Yeah, ISO very likely to chump with the token and block the Stranger with the 1/4. So ISO actually wins this race now, provided Jerry does not drop something to increase his clock further. I believe ISO wins this race anyway. If I'm playing this turn not correct. Oh, this Sand Viper draw is huge. Yeah, because you can play the Wind Shaper, swing in for a significant amount of damage, but also hold back enough blockers that these Strangers aren't a threat. Yeah, that's this. Now that he has a Sand Viper, that is, I think, the best swing. It's a 2-turn clock. If he didn't draw the Sand Viper, I think he should have held back with one of the 3/3s. But now I think Jerry is in a very bad spot all of a sudden. This was looking very, very good for Jerry just a couple turns ago. But, yeah. Isomorphic throwing any units possible under the bus. He doesn't want to die to a rapid shot, and he just has air lethal next turn, provided Jerry does not have a removal spell for the 5/5, and he doesn't. Yeah, Jerry could have somehow dealt with the 5/5. I don't believe he has a good way in his deck to do that. He could have bought himself a single extra turn. Or no, he couldn't have because he didn't have a ground blocker. Never mind. I don't believe there's anything in Jerry's deck that saves him here. Yeah. And also just swings in for a massive amount of air lethal. That game was looking very good for Jerry up until ISO kind of pulled off very good answers. The Archive Curator to make it so the unblockable wasn't relevant was very big there. Of course, he had it in hand. He didn't, top deck or anything, but Jerry, of course, had no way to know it was there. All right, and we go into what could be the final game of the final round of this sealed tournament. The winner takes home. The first place player takes home $100, so Isomorphic, fighting for an additional $40 for the over these next two games, potential two games. It seems the players are going back into the tank a little bit for sideboarding decisions. Sorry about that. The common complaint from players of friends list jumping around as you go to spectate someone. Just happened to me. All right, so ISO has a little bit of a low power hand here. Of course, the Seek Power off the top extremely helps with that. He'll be able to develop, 1 into 2 into 2 plus Seek Power, I think, is going to be his plan. An interesting line from Isomorphic here might actually be swinging with that Direfang Spider to maybe try to induce the trade so he could play the Snow Slinger next turn. Potentially have that Snow Slinger next turn. Maybe I'll have that get through, but that was maybe a bit of a speculative line. Interesting that Jerry did not have a follow-up there after swinging with the Pyrodept. I guess he really just wants to keep the board, uncluttered. All right, and ISO, if he wants, has a guaranteed way to get the snowball off of this Snow Slinger, which he may do just for the sake of being able to swing past the 2/2 with the Snow Slinger anyway to get in 3 damage, but he decides he'd just rather develop the Tower Top Patrol. The Accelerated Evolution draw out of Isomorphic means he's going to be able to put on a ton of pressure. I imagine he jumps, at the very least, the Snow Slinger here. And at that point, the Valk Aspirant is a dead man walking. All right, he decides to just jump the 2-2 with the 3-2 flyer to develop his board better instead of putting on more pressure the previous turn. But next turn, he'll be able to, or, this upcoming turn rather, he'll be able to more effectively fight the. Okay, so Jerry forgoes, of course, getting any lifesteal value from that bloodletter, but unfortunately, the Deadly Spider plus Ice Bow combo kind of destroying the suited up aspirant. Yeah, Jerry's under a ton of pressure here. He doesn't want to jump block, but he doesn't have any good blocks either. ISO has another two-turn clock here. 2 more swings, that is. All right, this Morningstar once again giving Jerry some okay blocks, but the Direfang Spider can swing, and Jerry has to decide if he wants to trade the 4-4 flyer for the 3-3 deadly flyer. ISO could also accelerate evolution the Snow Slinger to make it a 3 attack, and then and then the Snowball finishes off the aspirant. Jerry, of course, knows about the Snowball in hand. Decides he would rather get rid of the Snowball than trade directly with the flying Direfang Spider. This is looking very, very bad for Jerry here. The Stone Powder Alchemist at least gives him a little bit more of a health buffer, but I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think ISO is going to be taking this one home. Given his usual position, top 10 on the ladder for draft every month, not terribly shocked to see him running deep in this event. He opened a solid pool, and he has incredible play. Yeah, he's just dropping his opponent to 3. Jerry can't really race in return. He can heal himself up to 5 with a swing here. Up to 6, but he basically needs, I think, double torch, and he doesn't have any in his deck to survive. Just an Alk Blast here, not good enough. He does have those in his deck. He can't play it, of course. And that is Isomorphic taking it home 3-1 in the finals. So I will reiterate the grand final placement, or the finals placements. So we see Isomorphic taking first, taking him $100. Jerry taking second, taking him $60. One step behind and Covert Killer taking third, fourth. Both of them taking home $40. And then Garth, EDU, Danabor, Zephyr, and Hythar taking 5th through 8th, all taking home $15. And that is it for the tournament. Once again, apologies to everyone out there who was excited to watch the finals yesterday. We couldn't run the finals after the Swiss. It was just a bit too late. A lot of our players in this event were from EU. We even had an Australia player. And it was starting to get pretty late for casting and production. When we set out the timetable for this tournament, we didn't quite expect 260 odd players to register, and then 160 to actually show up for the event. An 8-round tournament with 80 matches at the start of the event, at the start of the day. A lot of rounds went to time, but it turned out great, I think. And yeah, so once again, congratulations to Isomorphic for his win. And hopefully we'll be able to run another one of these in set 3, and I will catch you all later.